Your work will be forgotten by everyone eventually. These harsh words lingered in Logan's sophisticated office while I gazed at the termination paperwork I had just executed. 5 years of working 70-hour weeks had been condensed into an electronic signature and a contemptuous remark. I kept my face expressionless despite the constriction I felt in my chest. "Thank you for this chance," I stated while standing up from the seat. Maintaining professionalism until the very end, that's Dana Whitaker, Senior Systems Engineer, or rather, former Senior Systems Engineer. As of 3 minutes prior, Logan Merritt, our compelling CEO, remained focused on his computer screen. His immaculately groomed hair reflected the San Diego sunshine pouring through the expansive windows that were added following our Series A investment. $10 million to expand the business I had contributed to building from its inception. I moved across the collaborative workspace, walking past multiple rows of developers who were unaware I would not return the following day. Several of them were currently utilizing my programming. Programming I had created during numerous sleepless nights. Programming that served as the foundation of our complete product. The specialized system design I had developed when we operated from that grimy storage facility downtown, when air conditioning was beyond our budget, and I continued programming while perspiration ran down my spine. "Leaving early today?" Thomas inquired from his workstation. He was among the recent additions who was oblivious to the current situation. "You could say that," I responded with a grin that failed to reflect genuine happiness. I gathered my belongings swiftly. The collection was modest. A tiny plant, a photograph of my sister's children in a frame, and a coffee cup. 5 years of dedication, and my personal possessions could be contained within a single fabric bag. Everything else had been devoted to this organization. While waiting for the elevator, I experienced a cold sensation traveling up my back. Logan's statement about my work being forgotten wasn't merely cruel, it was incorrect. Every line of that system design bore my signature. The documentation followed my distinctive format, created for my personal comprehension with abbreviated notes that were meaningful only to me. I had intentionally avoided creating the detailed manual that had remained on my task list for 3 years, consistently delayed for more pressing matters. The elevator arrived and I entered. As the doors shut, I glimpsed the office that had served as my secondary residence one final time. A realization struck me then. They were completely unaware of their mistake. Anger hadn't set in yet, but I suddenly became acutely conscious of my worth and the exact location of every original design document, version record, and intellectual property communication bearing my signature. I was raised witnessing my father's professional downfall. He was a gifted engineer who created an innovative battery technology in the 1990s. When his corporation became publicly traded, they removed him and eliminated his name from all media announcements. I promised myself I would never allow such a fate to befall me. Yet here I stood, 29 years old, departing from Quantum Shift with only a severance payment and a confidentiality agreement that I had thoroughly examined before signing. The NDA prohibited disclosure of proprietary information, but it didn't restrict my personal record-keeping methods or the documents I had strategically forwarded to my personal legal counsel before entering Logan's office. I had anticipated this outcome 3 weeks earlier. The quiet conversations, the private meetings, the manner in which Logan had begun presenting Troy, the new technical consultant, to our financial backers. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being proactive. During my drive home, I contacted my lawyer, Valerie Knowles. "I have been terminated," I stated plainly. "They are replacing me with someone possessing greater experience." "I understand," Valerie responded steadily. "Regarding the compensation package, 6 months' wages, standard confidentiality agreement, nothing concerning intellectual property beyond my original employment terms." "Intelligent approach," Valerie commented, and I detected her approval. "The documentation you provided appears comprehensive. Let's schedule a meeting tomorrow to explore our alternatives." The following morning, I didn't experience my usual compulsion to monitor work communications or messaging platforms. Instead, I remained in bed until 9 o'clock for the first time in years, prepared a substantial breakfast, and traveled to Valerie's office feeling unusually unburdened. Valerie had arranged my documentation across her meeting table, system diagrams, revision histories, correspondence that definitively demonstrated my contributions, and crucially, evidence that I had developed the proprietary authentication technology that distinguished Quantum Shift's offering in the market. Your record-keeping has been thorough, Valerie observed. Most individuals don't maintain such detailed documentation. My father instilled in me the importance of keeping evidence, I responded. So what are your intentions regarding all this? She inquired, indicating the proof of my 5 years of effort. I sat down, weighing my alternatives. Vindictiveness wasn't in my character. I hadn't been taught to pursue retribution, but I had learned to recognize my own value. Nothing immediately, I concluded, but I want to be prepared. Valerie acknowledged my decision with understanding. They will seek your assistance. Organizations like this invariably do, once they comprehend what they have lost. When that happens, we will be ready. I departed Valerie's office feeling unexpectedly calm. For the first time in 5 years, my schedule was entirely my own, and I planned to utilize it effectively. 3 weeks following my termination, I was seated at a coastal cafe, drinking an expensive coffee and browsing employment opportunities when my phone chimed. The display identified Joseph Bryant, Quantum Shift's Chief Technology Officer. Dana, he said, his voice excessively cordial. How are you managing? Well, Joseph, I answered, maintaining neutrality. How may I assist you? The development team has been progressing on the upcoming release, and they have some inquiries about certain architectural choices you made. I hoped you might have availability for a brief consultation. I paused to sip my beverage. Consultation was a curious word choice. I'm uncertain that would be suitable considering how my employment ended. I responded cautiously. Joseph cleared his throat. Listen, Dana, we're prepared to compensate you for your time. Logan may have acted precipitously in his choice. Precipitously, I echoed. Is that our characterization? Silence followed. The documentation is somewhat unique. I nearly chuckled. Unique was a diplomatic description for my personal notation system being incomprehensible to the new team. I had documented everything thoroughly, but in a manner that was perfectly logical to me and apparently meaningless to everyone else. I'm quite occupied currently, I stated. Perhaps Troy, with his vast expertise, can resolve it. Dana, Joseph started, but I interrupted. I extend my best wishes to everyone. Truly. I terminated the call. My phone immediately displayed a message from Joseph. We can increase your consultation fee significantly. Please reconsider. I placed my device down without responding. Let them experience some uncertainty. That evening, while preparing dinner, I received correspondence from Ethan Wilson, a junior developer I had guided. The subject read, You won't believe the situation. Ethan had always remained faithful to me, appreciative of the mentorship I had offered when others were too busy. The message was concise. Dana, everything is collapsing here. Troy cannot comprehend your authentication framework. 3 customers have reported serious problems following the recent deployment. Logan is faulting the development team, but everyone recognizes it's because they cannot understand your design. Joseph is completely panicked. Thought you should be aware. Miss your presence here. I positioned myself at my kitchen counter, staring at the correspondence. I hadn't anticipated such rapid deterioration. Part of me felt concern for my former colleagues. Most were decent individuals caught in an unfortunate situation. However, another part of me, the part that recalled Logan's contemptuous dismissal, experienced the first hint of gratification. My phone rang again. This time, it was Valerie. I just received contact from Quantum Shift's legal team, she announced. They wish to discuss a consulting arrangement. Already? I was surprised by the swift escalation. Apparently, they are experiencing technical difficulties, Valerie said with deliberate understatement. What is your recommendation? I inquired. I suggest we allow them to worry longer, she replied. The more desperate their situation becomes, the stronger your negotiating position will be. As I concluded the call, I felt an internal transformation, the understanding that I now controlled the situation. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about acknowledging my value, and that acknowledgement appeared to be approaching. By the 4th week after my departure, the communications became more persistent. Joseph, Troy, even Ethan with unofficial requests for assistance. I maintained my distance, providing ambiguous responses when I bothered to answer at all. While they struggled, I remained productive. I had arranged meetings with 3 competing companies, not seeking employment, but investigating the market environment. I needed to comprehend my advantageous position. On a sunny Tuesday morning, exactly 1 month after I had emptied my workspace, Logan personally called. "Dana," he said, his voice struggling to maintain its characteristic confidence. "I believe we began poorly. The board and I have been discussing your departure, and we feel there may have been a miscommunication." "A miscommunication?" I repeated, keeping my tone emotionless. "Regarding what specifically?" "About your importance to the organization," Logan said, the words clearly difficult for him to express. "We would like you to return as a consultant to assist with the transition." I almost inquired, "What about nobody remembering my work, but decided against revealing my position so early?" "I'm not interested in consulting," I said, "but I value the offer." "Dana, be practical. We're discussing a substantial consulting payment, 6 figures for several weeks of work." "I'm quite occupied presently," I replied, repeating my response to Joseph. "Best wishes with everything." I ended the call before he could continue and immediately contacted Valerie. "Logan just called offering a consulting role," I informed her. 6 figures. "They're becoming desperate," Valerie said. "But we must proceed carefully. Have you been monitoring their product?" I had indeed. Quantum Shift's customer-facing interface had been experiencing considerable downtime. Their social media support was working constantly to address complaints. Their stock value, which had increased following the funding announcement, had declined 15% in the previous week. "Their situation appears poor," I confirmed. "Perfect," Valerie said. "I've been conducting my own investigation. Did you know Logan presented your authentication system as his own innovation to the investors?" I felt a cold shock. "What?" "I have a connection on their board. Apparently, Logan has been claiming credit for your work for years. The investors were funding his vision, unaware that the technical foundation was entirely your creation. This revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Dismissing me was one thing. Stealing credit for my work was another. This violated a boundary I hadn't anticipated. "What's our next step?" I asked, my voice hardening. "We wait another week," Valerie advised. "Allow the situation to worsen further. Then we send formal notification of retained intellectual property rights." "Can we do that?" I signed their employment agreement. "The contract covers work performed within your job scope, but your custom authentication system, the one that makes their product unique, you developed the initial version independently before joining Quantum Shift. You have the time-stamped code repository as proof. You brought it with you and refined it for their needs, but the fundamental intellectual property could arguably remain yours." I clearly remembered those early days, programming in my apartment during weekends, developing the authentication system as a personal project before Logan ever approached me about joining Quantum Shift. I had mentioned this to Logan during my hiring, but he had dismissed it as insignificant. Now, that dismissal might prove costly. "So we possess leverage," I said slowly, understanding dawning. "More than leverage," Valerie replied. "We have a legal claim that could halt their entire operation if we pursue it." I reclined in my chair, processing this information. I had departed Quantum Shift feeling powerless. Now the situation had reversed so completely that I almost felt sympathy for them. Almost. 5 weeks after my departure, Quantum Shift's situation reached a crisis point. Their stock had fallen an additional 20%, and rumors of client departures were circulating in industry discussions. My phone had ceased ringing, a silence more threatening than the desperate calls had been. I was home watching a documentary when my doorbell chimed. Upon opening the door, I was astonished to find Olivia Harris, the primary investor from Threshold Ventures, standing on my doorstep. "Ms. Whitaker," she said seriously, "I apologize for the unexpected visit, but this matter couldn't wait. May I enter?" I hesitated, then stepped aside to admit her. Olivia had always been professional during investor presentations, but we had never conversed privately. "I'll be direct," she said, settling on my sofa. "Quantum Shift is in crisis, and I believe you understand why." "I've heard about some technical challenges," I replied cautiously. Olivia fixed me with an intense stare. "The authentication system is failing, and nobody can repair it. Logan assured us they had backup plans for key personnel departures, but that was obviously false. I remained quiet, waiting for her continuation. What's more troubling, she continued, is that we've discovered inconsistencies in what we were told about the company's technical leadership. Logan presented himself as the architectural visionary, with you merely implementing his concepts. I couldn't suppress the bitter laugh that emerged. Is that his version? It is. But our technical advisors have examined the situation, and it's become clear that you were the true architect of the system. Logan misrepresented your role to secure funding. I inhaled deeply. I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed. As am I, Olivia said. Threshold invested $10 million based partly on false information. That's why I'm here, Ms. Whitaker. The board has scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow. Logan is unaware I'm meeting with you, but I believe your presence at this meeting is crucial. This was unexpected. I had anticipated legal negotiations, not a board invitation. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked. I'm suggesting you tell the truth. Help us understand our situation and available options. In return, I promise your contributions will be properly acknowledged and valued. I considered this momentarily. I appreciate the offer, Ms. Harris, but my attorney has advised against direct engagement with Quantum Shift without proper legal protection. Olivia nodded, appearing unsurprised. I understand. What if we include your attorney in the meeting? This isn't about secret negotiations. It's about transparency. The investors need to understand the reality of the situation. I pondered her proposal. Attending the board meeting carried risks but also presented an opportunity to directly address those with the power to implement real changes. I'll need to consult with my attorney, I said finally. Of course. Olivia stood to leave. The meeting is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I hope to see you there. After her departure, I immediately called Valerie and explained the situation. This is an interesting development, Valerie said. Earlier than I expected, but potentially beneficial. If you attend, you'll be speaking from a position of strength, not desperation. What about our original plan, the formal notification? We can still proceed. In fact, I'd recommend sending it tonight before the meeting. That way, they'll be aware of your legal position when you enter the room. I agreed, and Valerie promised to send the notification immediately. That night, I barely slept. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation I hadn't sought but now welcomed. I wasn't seeking revenge, but I was determined to correct the record. Logan had attempted to erase me from Quantum Shift's success story. Tomorrow, I would write myself back in, this time permanently. The Quantum Shift offices appeared identical to when I had departed 6 weeks earlier. Yet everything felt different. I walked through the reception area with Valerie beside me, attracting attention as we passed. Whispers followed us down the corridor to the main conference room. Upon entering, the tension was unmistakable. Around the elongated table sat the board members, including Olivia Harris, 3 other investors, and the company's executive team. Logan occupied the head of the table, his usual confident expression absent. Joseph, the CTO, appeared as though he hadn't rested in days. Ms. Whitaker, thank you for joining us, Olivia said, rising to greet me. And this must be your attorney, Ms. Knowles. Correct, Valerie replied smoothly, placing her briefcase on the table. We received your invitation and are here in good faith. However, I should mention that we delivered formal notification of retained intellectual property rights to Quantum Shift's legal team last night. Logan's face reddened with anger. This is ridiculous. You signed an employment contract that explicitly states all work product belongs to the company. I'm aware of what I signed, I replied calmly. But the authentication system in question was initially developed before my employment commenced. I have documented proof, including the original code repository with timestamps. One of the investors, a distinguished man I recognized as Victor Lee from Magnitude Capital, leaned forward. Is this accurate, Logan? Did you know about this? Logan's expression tightened. Dana is making misleading statements. She may have had some preliminary code, but anything significant was developed during company time. I retrieved my laptop from my bag and connected it to the conference room screen. With your permission, I'd like to share some evidence. Olivia nodded, and I displayed the code repository, showing the commit history that clearly predated my employment at Quantum Shift. Then I showed emails between Logan and me from my early days at the company where I explicitly mentioned bringing my authentication system to the project. You'll observe, Valerie added, that Mr. Merritt acknowledged Dana's prior work in these communications, but never formalized any transfer of intellectual property rights beyond the standard employment agreement, which doesn't cover pre-existing work. The room became silent as board members exchanged glances. Logan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. There's more, I continued, displaying slides from investor presentations. These are materials presented to you during the Series A round. You'll notice that the authentication system is highlighted as a key competitive advantage, but my name is conspicuously absent from any credits. Victor Lee removed his glasses, massaging his temples. Logan, you represented yourself as the technical visionary behind these systems. I oversaw their development, Logan insisted. Oversight is not creation, I countered, and your oversight consisted mainly of setting impossible deadlines while claiming credit for the outcomes. Joseph, who had remained quiet until now, cleared his throat. I can confirm that Dana was the principal architect of the authentication system. Without her, we cannot maintain it properly, as the past 6 weeks have proven. Logan glared at Joseph, but the damage was done. The investors were now regarding Logan with open distrust. What exactly are you seeking here, Ms. Whitaker? Asked another board member. Valerie stepped in. My client is not looking to destroy Quantum Shift. She believes in the product she helped build. However, she requires proper recognition of her contributions, appropriate compensation for her intellectual property, and guarantees against future misrepresentation of her work. And if these terms aren't met? Logan challenged. Then the notification stands, Valerie replied coolly. Quantum Shift will be legally prevented from using the authentication system, effectively rendering your product non-functional. The reality of the situation seemed to dawn on everyone simultaneously. Quantum Shift's $10 million valuation, their entire business model, hung in the balance, and I, the engineer they had so easily dismissed, now held the key to their survival. The emergency board meeting continued for another 3 hours. As discussions intensified, Logan's position weakened with each revelation. The board members, initially skeptical of my claims, grew increasingly convinced as more evidence emerged. Victor Lee called for a brief recess, during which the board members convened privately. When they returned, Olivia Harris addressed the room with newfound authority. After careful consideration, the board has made several decisions, she announced. First, we're initiating an immediate leadership change. Logan, we appreciate your vision in founding Quantum Shift, but it's clear that there have been serious misrepresentations under your leadership. Logan's face went pale. You can't be serious. I built this company from nothing. With Dana's technology, Victor Lee added pointedly. A fact you deliberately concealed from us. Second, Olivia continued, we're offering Dana a new position as Chief Technology Officer with appropriate equity compensation and full recognition for her past contributions. My heart raced. This exceeded my expectations. Additionally, she said, we're proposing a licensing agreement for the authentication system with royalties on all future revenue derived from its use. Valerie and I exchanged glances. This addressed nearly everything we had hoped for. And finally, Olivia concluded, we're requiring a public correction regarding the development of Quantum Shift's core technology, acknowledging Dana's role as the principal architect. Logan stood abruptly. This is a mistake. You're handing the company over to someone who's holding it hostage. No, Logan, I said quietly. I'm not holding the company hostage. I'm simply ensuring that the truth is recognized. Victor Lee nodded. The board's decision is final. Logan, you can accept a reduced role as a strategic advisor, or you can leave entirely. The choice is yours. Logan looked around the table, searching for allies but finding none. Without another word, he stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind him. In the silence that followed, I realized that the vindication I felt wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. 3 months later, I stood on a small platform at Quantum Shift's headquarters, addressing our team and several tech journalists. The company had undergone a remarkable transformation. Today marks an important milestone, I began. With the release of our new platform update, we're not just improving functionality. We're rebuilding on a foundation of transparency, and collaborative innovation. The authentication system that had once been my solitary creation was now maintained by a team of talented engineers, all of whom received proper credit for their contributions. The documentation was comprehensive and accessible, ensuring that the company would never again be dependent on a single person's knowledge. After the announcement, Olivia approached me, smiling warmly. The investors are impressed with the turnaround. User complaints are down 87%, and we're seeing former clients return. It's a team effort, I replied, genuinely proud of what we had accomplished. True, but your leadership has been the catalyst. By the way, have you heard about Logan? I shook my head. Logan had chosen to leave the company entirely, rejecting the board's offer of an advisory role. He's trying to launch another startup, Olivia said. But he's finding it difficult to secure funding. Word travels fast in this industry. I felt a momentary pang of sympathy. I hope he learns from this experience. As do I, Olivia agreed, though some lessons come at a higher cost than others. Later that day, I received an unexpected email from Logan. It was brief. Dana, I owe you an apology. I should have valued your contributions instead of trying to diminish them. The company is better off in your hands. Logan. I sat at my desk, contemplating how to respond. In the end, I kept it simple. Logan, thank you for the apology. I wish you success in your future endeavors. Sometimes the most valuable lessons are the most painful ones. Dana. It wasn't about forgiveness or forgetting. It was about acknowledging the truth, something I had fought for and finally achieved.